right? If you got Atlas don't have such a fancy book, but they have a great website, and the install instructions for both are on the bundles, right? So you flip over the bundles, English, Spanish, I think it's in French too. So you shouldn't have a problem finding install instructions. I guess we'll just kind of crash through the entire roof, right? So we'll go, say we've tore off, we're all the way down to decking, right? So we're going to look for rotten decking, damaged decking. Damage could go as far as dry rot. You know, the boards, the plywood, you'll see this in houses from the 50s, 60s, 70s, even into the 80s, where they had plywood start to delaminate. You'll get that from bad ventilation. Sales guys, you guys are supposed to be in the attic looking for that, you know, from the bottom side. Sometimes it don't show up down there because, you know, a lot of the heat's between the plywood and the shingles. If we run into that, then we need to start looking at change orders and talking to the customer about different decking. This gets all the way, like, when we're talking about managing the customer's expectations, the same things we talk about homeowner, homework, you know, so crew stuff, it gets into safety, how the shingles are manufactured, so specifically how the HDZs are manufactured, and just general stuff, tearing off the roof, it gets into decking. If we've got to replace the decking on the roof, make sure the crew is installing the decking in a running bond. Does everybody know that term? Okay, running bond is where I stagger my joints, right? So my first sheet goes down, we run that course. The next one we're going 50-50, like a brick pattern, right? So that'll go, then we'll be a full sheet here. We keep stepping off, so it makes it stronger, keeps it all where we don't have joints just going in the same. You'll find roofs where you'll see it that way. Technically it's not right. I don't know if you're going to be able to get a change order to redeck a house because someone didn't put it in a running bond. It's been there all that time. So continue. Any soft rotten spots, when you take out that sheet OSB, go ahead and put the other one back in. From there we start getting everything prepped, right? Go down with the roof. So our drip edge on the eaves is going to be your first thing that goes down, right? It's going to go all the way out to your fascia, comes back, gets nailed. After you get that first piece of drip edge down, you're going to go back down with your ice and water shield in your valleys on your end walls. So I've got a little one over here. I didn't build a valley, but if you can, the ice and water shield at the sidewalls needs to come up and turn up the wall a couple inches. If we're replacing the counter flashing on a brick house, ideal. It's going to come up the sidewall a few inches, and then we'll flash back over that after we get our step flashing in. So after the first piece of the drip edge goes down, then we install the synthetic felt. We'll run that all the way to the eaves. That overlaps each other. It's got marks on it. This blue line on the felt is the ideal situation for what we're overlapping to. So this would come over the first course. So it's about 4 inches. Just run that, get it as smooth and flat as you can. When you see guys and they've got them wrinkling and waving, when you start putting shingles, sometimes you'd think the shingle weighs enough to squash that down, but it's going to project through there. Like we don't do 15-pound felt, obviously, but you see new construction still using it. They put it on the roof, it gets dew on it, it gets rain, it buckles up, and it's real wavy. If you drive back by that house after they roof it, you're going to see that same shape in that roof. It does not go away. We get our felt down. After then we can put our drip edge on the eaves. So you see how we got it here. So we brought it over for watershed. On the rakes, it's going over, and that's for the wind, right? So we don't get the wind coming up underneath the felt. Everything stays down, stays tacked in place real nice. With the drip edge, if you guys want to come around this way, this has been one of the biggest things that I've been finding on jobs. scrubs. Pay them 50 cents a linear foot just to hold this up here and shoot some nails and walk away. I mean, we're paying them because there's details and there's things that have to be done to make it look right. So terminating at the edge, sometimes with the gutter you can't make this roll around the gutter or behind the gutter like this, but a flush cut is fine, but it needs to be at the same angle as the fascia. It's really just as simple as holding it up. This edge comes all the way down, and when you're bringing it in, you're going to see where this is at. You can measure from the corner to here, and then just take that same measurement to the top, mark a line, cut it. That'll give them their angle they need, and then they go ahead and put it on. If they've got the ability and there's not a gutter, if they cut this a little proud, so they cut this back, leave a little flange, you can cut that at a little angle, cut back, and then wrap it around the corner, and then it tucks back in behind the other drip edge. Just a real clean look. You don't have any open gaps anywhere on the bottom. So water's not going to get in there, but it's just an aesthetic. My biggest thing, I know Ed's the same way, Alan is taking to doing the same thing. Symmetry on the drip edge is huge. Like, when I walk up and I see, you know, this little piece here, and then over here there's a 10-foot piece, it just looks crappy. Like you're seeing your eye goes to the seams no matter what. So have them take that first piece that's going to go on the gable, especially if they're equal parts. Have them cut that, break it over, lay it down, not nail it all the way, and then they can bring the next piece, start at the bottom, they can work their way up, and then overlap it accordingly. That just keeps, like say, when you're walking up to the house, you're seeing those seams in the same spot. It's got, you know, symmetry. It doesn't look janky that way. The way that the crew have just been doing drip edge, they've essentially just been laying this piece up here flush, taking this piece, coming in here and doing this, right? So you guys can look at this and tell me if you like that look, if you'd want it on your house. The other thing that you're seeing that's happening right here is now we've got a sharp edge here, and coming to a point, right? So when the shingles lay over, when you guys are doing roof inspections before you tear off, do you commonly see a hole worn in the ridge cap out here? It's constantly got expansion contraction happening on sharp edges, so it's going to wear a hole, right? So have them go away from the two-piece thing. So if they have their drip edge up here, a little level, and they're square, which most of them have a square already. This is a really easy deal. So they'll just take the square, the level, find the angle that they need to keep it straight up and down, mark it with a pencil. They'll cut where they made their mark. The next piece doesn't get cut to the same angle. It just gets cut back just enough to where it can bend in, and then they roll it over the ridge, and now you don't have the sharp edge for your shingles to be laying into. And if they made that cut right, then we're going to have a nice reveal that looks like it actually got mitered, right? So same thing that was here, just the shingle. Now we don't have, you know, the sharp edges to where it's going to dig into. So this is my biggest thing. When I walk on the job and I see that cut the other way, it just makes my head want to explode. So hopefully you guys get there too. Pass that one around. And like I say, it works for any pitch, right? So you figure that's like a 12-12 pitch, a 90-degree bend. Underneath the felt on the eaves. Then we'll go ahead and start applying our starter strip. That just goes in just as the book says. The first piece you're going to cut back. The sealant strip did its job. Anyway, first piece you're going to cut back 6 inches, and then they'll nail that, and then they'll run it to the end. It goes on your eaves, it comes up your rakes. So the one on the rake comes over the one on the eave. So just, if you guys just always think water running downhill, we want everything to overlap the layer prior, so that way water don't get hung up somewhere and dam. Starter on the rakes, and then from there they're gonna go ahead and start doing their shingles. On the bundles, it tells them where to mark their chalk lines. So that first chalk line is obviously for the first shingle. They don't have to do every, but about every, where you at, Brad? It's about every 2 feet, right, 2-3 feet, where they're taking the chalk line and popping for reference. So they're lining up on the bottom to make sure they're going, but that chalk line every couple of feet just gives them a point of reference to where if they got off somewhere, you can measure to that chalk line and make sure and get back on track for your straight lines. You get on a lot of roofs and you'll see when you're up there, you'll see that the roof line just kind of moving. You don't see it so much from the ground, but you get another roofer up there looking at work or storm damage or something after the fact, they're just going to laugh at you.
Hey, right.
Go ahead.
And also on that too, if they do that, if you're ever noticing that the framing is way off, they can start cheating those lines like an eighth, every third one, and so you can make up that gap if you don't end up with the sliver start peeking out the ridge.
You got it. So your shingles go down, like I say, the book calls it out too. So your first course full shingle. That's why you cut back the 6 inches, is so this seam don't land on the same, right? Because they're the same length. If you don't cut it back, you'll have a gap here. You'll get water in behind your gutter and your fascia. So just you keep working. Everybody, has anyone learned the term racking? I know Brian, Brad have. So you'll see racking happen. Pretty much racking is they'll take a shingle, a full one, then they cut it half, install it, a full shingle, that other half, and they just keep going straight up and down, right? Then they'll move over, they'll keep doing the same thing. What you get out of that's a couple things is now you got to take this full shingle and pull it back to nail on your next course. Sometimes you'll get memory in them where they'll stay rolled up. It was a little more prevalent on the 3 taps, but the bigger thing that it does is if you've been driving down the road and you look at a house and the roof kind of looks tiger striped, you're like, what the heck is that? It's because they racked the roof, right? The shingles were designed to lay in a pattern where you're coming back and working just like our crews do, right? Where they're laying them and it kind of looks like they're working back at an angle, and they come back and then work back at an angle. If you install that way, you will not get the tiger stripe look on the roof. So, like I say, we just make sure the guys aren't racking in anywhere. Sometimes, like a new construction application, if you got to install and then you got like the mason coming back, they're going to install, they're going to leave a gap between the wall. In that situation, it's about the only time you can kind of rack it, but you're just tying in the shingles, so it's not out in the field going to create a big color variation. Plumbing boots, I say they'll install up to where they do, shingles to where they get to where the pipe flashing will go. They'll go over that with the boot, and then ice and water shield goes above the boot, comes all the way down, not past the other shingle, but comes down so it can shed water off, and then you install your shingles over. They'll cut around the boot and just keep carrying on with the pipe flashes. So the ridge vent, I don't have that exact number in my mind, but I would say it's like 1.5 to 2 inches that you cut back from the very ridge to give yourself the airflow. So they're going to cut that, come back. I like to keep my ridge vent like 2 feet back from the edge. So don't have them cut that all the way across. It creates a soft spot in the center if somebody steps on it, to give. So have them bring that over to where the actual ridge vent is going to go past the cut in the ridge, and then they'll install the ridge vent. GAF, St. Atlas, True Vent, they're all True Ridge. They're all coming with the nails, so they're long ring shank nails. They have holes in them already to get the ridge cap in place, or the ridge vent in place. So make sure they're popping a line, keeping that nice and straight, and then they pop the nails through, and then from there they'll use those long nails to install the ridge cap shingles over over that. So they'll nail them out here on the sides, overlap the next course, nail them over the next course, so on and so on. They're using those long ring shank nails. They don't need to be hammering down trying to, like, I had to do it on this because my nails were short. But to where you're getting this big roll in it, and just get them down to where they're flush on the shingle, it's good and secure, be in good shape. If we know the direction of the prevailing winds, then we want to install the ridge cap the best we can with that, right? So if we know the wind is generally coming from this direction, then we'll install the ridge cap this way, right? So the wind's not getting underneath them and ripping them off. When you get to the end, you can just put your one little shingle over, put your 4 nails, geosil them, vice versa. So you may not always know what direction the wind's coming from. It may just be that it comes on this way. In that case, I like to install from both ways, like find center, install both ways, have them meet in the middle, and then put that little, let's call it that. Really, a little centerpiece to go over, cover up the nails. You'll have exposed nails there, just like here. Seal those with the clear geosil, and pretty well get you there. This is the only boot I had without going to buying one. So pipe boots at the end of the job, they get painted black or the color of the roof. So you guys should be asking for at least 1 tube of geosil. If you got counter flashing in a brick, you're going to need to up that count. Color match spray paint, 1 can's going to do. I've never needed more than 1 can of paint. I mean, that's a lot of paint for 3, 4, even 5 plumbing vents.
Ray, let me ask you, because I have been out there to do it. Do they put it here, adhesive underneath the boots when they put them on?
I like to have them do that. I'll have them put a bead on. No, not here. No. On here, I'll have them put a little bead of geosil and then slide it down over it. It's just another little layer. Down here, no. Like I say, that's why you got your ice and water shield. You got the next shingle. I mean,
I just know we used to do that. I know it's perfect so much work.
I mean, if I was going to put it anywhere, I'd put it just where the nail is, but you should be in good shape with that. From there, coming off the roof safely, making sure that it's clean. So having the crew take the blower, blowing the extra granules off. If they've dropped nails, picking up the nails. That's been a common one that we've been seeing is, little random nails here and there, or nails in the gutter. We got to get all that stuff off the roof. Make sure that we're getting it cleaned off. We leave nails up there just hanging out. They sit in the rain, they just rust. Now you get, instead of having algae streaking, now we're gonna have rust stains coming down the roof. Not gonna look real appealing to the homeowner. And then we get wind, it blows off somewhere, and now we're buying a tire because they got a roofing nail in there, $400 Audi tire. So not too good. And then, like I say, once on the ground, cleanup is got to be top notch. The CAs are out there telling the guys, or the homeowners, hey, their guys are gonna clean up when the job's done. They're gonna go around. They're gonna get as many, all the nails possible. They should be saying there's a chance there may be some stragglers here and there. I mean, we're pulling off thousands upon thousands of nails, trying to find every one isn't great, but when I was project managing, I had my own magnet I kept in the truck. So the crew would go, I would have the crew lead say, when they come and say cleanup is ready, my thing with them was every nail I find, I'm taking $5 off the invoice. I'd go around with my magnet. I found a handful of nails one day and I said, this is gonna hurt you a lot. And so we took like $200 off the bill because I had to pick up a bunch of nails. They thought I was joking until that day, but it happened. I didn't have cleanup issues after that. So you guys do what you want with that information, but it's pretty strong in your favor. Like I say, I used to just pick up nails when I was going and doing QA checks, and I'd say, that's cool, I'm here, but I've done too much of that. I'll just start sending you guys pictures and it'll be in the QA and you guys will make the drive out there and pick them up or send the crew. That will get people thinking a little more about cleanup, because if you got to drive back out there after you've already collected a check, it's going to stick with you. So not doing that to be an a-hole, just doing that to
Accountability.
get everybody there. That's a good word. Different kind of a-hole, right?
Yeah.
Like I say, and then checking the driveway, making sure that we got all the nails out. That's after the dump trailer leaves, right? So the crew leaves off with the dump trailer. Check that driveway. There's a lot of times we don't have any nails. They're going out the driveway. They hit that little transition. It hits, and they drop nails. At the I don't know, you want to call it the little gutter, or at the curb, and it's a place to buy a tire. So check when the crew is all the way gone, not before they've left. I guess that'll get us to questions.
Did you highlight how making sure the drip edge is flush to the face and right here?
Yeah, well, we could revisit that. So what Ernie wanted to make sure was that the drip edge is flush to the fascia, so it's tight to it. On your eaves, it's not made at the angle that this is taken, right? So what you have to do sometimes is if you just lay it down flat and you just press on it, you can reduce that. So they just take that piece of drip edge and just tweak it a little bit. That'll help it take the angle of the roof and lay flush into the fascia. The rakes, obviously, don't need to do that because that's 90 degrees, but that is an area that gets a little funky. You're going to run into having where the hangers for the gutters are up higher. Yeah, they're going to notch it. Wherever that is, they'll roll it back to get it to fit. But that just helps keep it nice and straight.
And if they notch it and miss it, replace that piece of drip edge. Don't notch it, move it, notch it again, and leave that piece of drip edge.
Sure.
That you see a lot too, and it looks horrible.
It does. Like I say, homeowners generally don't see it unless they got a window that looks out, but we see it. And then, like I say, I always, I don't know what everybody's thought is on jobs. Mine's always like, I want the homeowner to be wowed. I wouldn't even put something on a homeowner's house that I'll put on my own house. At my house, it was me, right? But you can hold the crews to a whole different level, right? They're supposed to be professionals. They do this day in, day out, and they get paid for it. So the level of expectation on their install should not be the same as, that's about how it looked at my house when I did it myself. That's not it. They're held to this standard when it comes to installation, no matter what, whether it's interior trim, windows, doors, flooring. You're the professional. You're the one that said you can do this A+. So keep them going that way. You had raised your hand a minute ago.
Yeah, just one thing, going back to the foundation sets up the success for the rest of the thing. OSB, everybody knows what OSB stands for, right? Oriented strand board. Oriented means those fibers going down a certain direction, which means it has a strength axis. Usually runs the long way. Some of them will be stamped otherwise. When you're running those, it's important that you run the strength axis horizontal when you're doing those little patches. If you turn them up vertical, you lose that, and you'll get sagging in between those rafters. So when you go back and you see roofs that are dipping between, if you peel that off, more than likely that OSB is running this way, not this way, and you've lost that strength axis. It's the same thing when you're framing a house. You can't do it like this. It's got to do like this. Like what Ray was saying about the row lock. When you run it like this and break those up, that's the way you do that. But make sure the guys aren't being sloppy, cutting a little scrap piece, turn it up, and then later, come back 3 years later, you'll have a little belly in there.
You should always go over 2 rafters too.
Yeah.
Replace an OSB, never go from one rafter to the next.
Bridge
Always
a rafter.
at least 2.
Yep.
Yeah. True story. Anybody else got anything roofing wise?
If they are, I guess, replacing a box vent and it's almost over top of just one, you want them to go all the way to the other one?
Should go over 2 rafters.
Yes, sir.
You get no strength out of it by putting that little, 2 foot by 1 foot piece in there. It'll just, all it's going to do is sag, because all you got holding is the nails. Think about it, it's only sitting on 3/4 inch on each side of it. You know what I mean? That's all that's sitting on there. So the rest of it's just sagging down over time. So what are What are the code requirements on synthetic felt? We're putting felt down.
You mean like staples versus button caps, or what?
No, how is this supposed to be installed per code?
We like over time.
6
Yeah.
foot overlap.
4 to 6 foot overlap between cut edges, right? Between two. So if you got, say, like you lay this one down, you had a partial roll, right? You lay this down, and you only make it to right here on the roof line, right? So then, when you come in with the new roll, you have to have 4 to 6 inches overlap here, right? If you had a end roll on the next run, you have to have between 4 to 6 feet between those two. Also, this line is 4 inches. 4-inch overlap, top and bottom also, by code.
I'm re-roofing an old house built in the 50s, and it's got like 1x6 decking. What kind of acceptable gaps can I have between that, and then how do I patch up holes in it? Yeah, I'm re-roofing an old house built back in the 1950s. It's got 1x6 instead of OSB decking.
Yeah.
So what kind of acceptable gaps can I have between those 1x6s? And then how do I patch it if I need to take out and replace some pieces of it?
Sometimes it's tongue and groove, sometimes it's not.
I'm gonna
Sometimes
tell
it's
you-
whatever the farmer had when he was building his house. Not good.
To refer to the manufacturer specifications.
I think we did one and we had to replace, we took like 3/4 or 7/8 plywood and used that to make a patch.
CAF in the book says an 1/8 inch gap is all that's acceptable. So between the 1x6s, 1x8s, whatever they use, if you've got more than an 1/8 inch gap, then it's got to be correct.
So when laying in, when they deck a roof with OSB, what's the acceptable gap between sheets of OSB? How do you lay it in? You know what the gap is? An 1/8. It's an 1/8 of an inch. You're supposed to put an 1/8 of an inch for expansion and contraction.
So if you put a roofing nail between the two, you're good.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
A lot of times you'll get them old roofs though, and there'll be 3/4 inch to 1.5 inch gaps between all of those boards, right? In that situation, you have to redeck the roof.
That's a hard one to go back with. If it's insurance, that puts us in a better spot for the homeowner because you can field document that. They're gonna have to pay it, but then we can try to get the supplement for them on the back end, help them with that.
That's why we need to be looking in the attic to see what the decking is, because we need to
beforehand.
prep that homeowner ahead of time and say, hey, this is the potential of what can happen here. Let's have this discussion with the insurance before we get started.
Chapter 9, IRC specifically says how to handle that.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do. Right there. Nick, I've got paperwork for you too. For chapter 9. I think you're the only one that didn't get it. So
But the CAs need to look in that attic when you're showing the roof.
there is no argument with insurance on. There's no argument from insurance on the decking. If there's a 3/4 gap and the decking has to be replaced, they can't argue it.
Yesterday I went out to one, they had the 1x6, then they went over it with OSB. That's that picture I sent to Brad. I see that a lot. So even when you look in the attic, you might see that, but you need to also, when you're outside, pull up shingles and look.
And here's what I will tell you. Here's my recommendation on the insurance. This is something that Brad and Francesca and I learned in this class we went to a couple weeks ago. So Metro Nashville is the only one that requires, you're supposed to pull a permit and do a re-roof. All right? Put a roof on in Nashville, you're supposed to pull a permit for it, right? Here's what I will tell you. If insurance is denying the claim because of something that you know is wrong, like they're saying we're not going to pay for drip edge, we're not going to pay for ice and water shield, go to the local code department, pull a permit, and tell them everything, show them pictures and tell them this is there's the insurance claim, they're not going to cover any of this. It's a code, it's right there in the book. I gave you all the copies, it's all highlighted, it's right there in the book. They will not issue the permit because they would be in violation of code by giving you a permit to allow you to do it incorrectly, right? Then you can take that back to the insurance adjuster and say, good luck, you have to pay it. You have to replace it by code, right? You beat them at their own game is what I'm telling you.
On behalf of my client, you're screwed.
Yeah.
That and manufacturer specifications. So,
And it says it in the book. You shall follow manufacturer's specifications in the 900 chapter. It's very specific in there. There's none of this. They'll try and get you with wordsmithing, like, you know, shall and things like, you know, they'll try and wordsmith you out of it, but it's very specific in the code book.
yeah, and like I said, but for as far as talking about code, there's generally not a manufacturer specification that's going to come up list, especially in our area for local code, because all of these manufacturers are aiming at Miami-Dade codes, and if you've ever been down there, you know they got hurricanes and storms. Especially after Hurricane Andrew, they went real crazy on what they were requiring for shingles there, as far as wind ratings, uplift, everything else. There, you do have to pull permits. You do have to have inspections on the decking. So, like, it's a roof. There's not generally a one-day job. You're tearing it off. You're getting things situated. Then they're coming back. You do a small section and show them. There, you got to use. They're like a washer, but you put that down, you shoot your nail. Put that down, shoot your nail. So you have these little aluminum discs that go everywhere. So it's. The shingle manufacturers have exceeded our local code, I guess is what I'm trying to get to. If nobody's got any questions on roofing, then we'll talk about siding. Let's go around.